right. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us here on an exciting, thrilling, very special edition of Cowboys Overtime, sponsored by Window Nation here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel, and that is not my co-host, Clarence E. Hill Jr.
Mac,
Clarence, we'd have lots to talk about.
I was just about to say that open was great, but I am not Clarence.
No, you're not. Clarence is no longer with us. No, I'm just kidding. Clarence is on vacation. I want to make that sound really dramatic and potentially really sad. No, Clarence is on vacation now for the next, I think, 3 weeks until the Dallas Cowboys depart for training camp in Southern California, which is like July 20th or something like that. So in his place, we have an upgrade. I have asked Miss Sam Gannon, the pride of the University of Connecticut swimming and diving team, pride of Boston, Massachusetts, and longtime Celtics homer, current co-anchor on KDFW, Fox 4, along with the great Mike Ducey. Sam, thank you very much for joining me. The check is in the mail. If you don't get it, just be patient. It will arrive. And how are you today?
I'm used to waiting, so that's fine. I'm lovely, Mac, just happy to be here with you. And, it's really weird. I'm sure you feel the same way. This has been a busy summer for all of us, but there's about a 2-3 week period, like right now, where things are busy, but it will ramp up, like you mentioned, for training camp in about 3 weeks. So
what is that piece of art behind your head? Is that one of those things that you look at and say, oh, I see a sailboat. I see, like it's one of those things that psychologists will sit there and determine who you are as a person, depending on what you know.
It's peaceful. It's one of those cloth. It's not actually a painting. It's like made out of some type of cloth. So I think it's some type of, I don't know, flower.
Oh, okay. Flower.
Yeah, all but right.
It could be anything.
Tranquility, But my background is not. You always have good stuff going on back there.
I have a lot of busy junk. This is I've been in the same house that I grew up in Central Indiana for now 47 years. So a lot of that stuff is still there. And they're now at a point where like, just take it. Well, my mom can kind of, I'll tell you a funny story about my mom. So my dad's 91, Sam. So he's like, just if you tools, whatever, just take it. So my mom and dad have like 3 sanders, what I mean? Like those electric sanders. And I saw one that I liked and I said, I'll take that one. Well, she said, hey, don't take both of them. I might use one. She's 85. She's going to be out there sanding.
You never know, Mac. Don't take both of them, okay?
That's true. That was very important. So all the stuff you see behind me, like these are newspapers from my grandmother's house. And one of them is from the end of World War I. And the other one is the day Kennedy was assassinated. I was going to say Lincoln. We don't have that one. And then there's an original XFL football. There's a Beverly Hills Cop 2 sign in an old movie store. And that's an original Indiana Jones action figure. I have all kinds of crap. And it is crap.
Stuff is worth?
That's a good question. It's not as much as you think. I've priced this out. Okay. Yeah, I have. I've done the whole, because if it was worth anything, I would have sold it. Trust me.
Yeah. Yes. I would have done the same.
But if you ever want to come by and just sort of, I'll tell you what, we're going to leave the house unlocked. You just take what you need.
Max
just leave the dog.
Yeah, I'll leave the dog. Max Museum, though. I need to stop by and see what it's about.
Yes, you do. So even though this is a downtime technically for you and I, and everybody who covers and follows really sports in DFW, because right now the Rangers are playing, the Dallas Wings are playing. I think that's about it. Everybody is technically off. But we did have something rather eventful happen this week that grabbed the entire state really by the neck, because this doesn't happen every day. And typically college baseball is a niche of a niche sport, and the diehards are into it. But it's not really one of those captivating college sports. Sam died on us. So college baseball is typically hopefully Sam comes back, is not one of those sports that grabs the nation by storm. Certainly not like NCAA football and not like NCAA March Madness. Those are the 2 college sports where everybody pays attention. The rest, it's a niche thing, but college baseball has an audience, obviously, but not a big one. This was an exception because this week it involved the two biggest teams in the state of Texas, the University of Texas, which did not make the College World Series, and Texas A&M, which did. And in fact, A&M had the best season in its history and went all the way to the College Baseball World Series final series. Are we back?
We're
Did we
back.
lose everybody? We had a major, I don't know.
I don't know what happened, but we're back.
We all died. Yes, we all did. When we came back. So
Came back.
is our fearless for Steve, are you there? Okay, so forget it. We don't need, we'll just go from here. So thank you very much. So Sam, this was a great week for the rivalry between Texas and Texas A&M because Texas is going to join the SEC. It's not in the SEC. And yet I think what they did this week announced to everybody, we're going to, I don't know about run the SEC. I don't know if anybody's going to do that. But Texas A&M, you're second in the SEC in this state.
Your little brother, right?
You are a little brother. Now I know you're from Connecticut you went to UConn, you're from Massachusetts, but you've lived in this part of the country for a good amount of time now. You covered Oklahoma when you lived in Oklahoma City. Texas A&M just lost its baseball coach to the University of Texas the day after it lost Game 3 of the College World Series final series against Tennessee. If you're an Aggie, this is demoralizing on a lot of different levels. Sam, does A&M have any chance to really go toe-to-toe with UT in the SEC?
I mean, definitely not in the short-term future, right? Because I was looking, I believe the count is 7 Aggies players have now entered the transfer portal.
I thought it was 9. Is
it 9? Okay, maybe it's 9.
Well, it's 7 or 9. They could almost feel that UT could feel potentially a lineup, I think, of A&M players next season.
And I wonder too, like the thing is, that's why I never want to hear anything about, college athletes wanting money and, wanting to monetize and capitalize off their own name when coaches are going to leave whenever. You know what I mean? It's going to be real interesting to see. I know Aggies fans are really bitter right now. That's one thing I've learned since living there. They might be the most bitter of all the fan bases since I've moved here. That's just what I've witnessed. We sometimes hear from them if we don't mention enough Texas A&M. And
right.
I don't know, just to have your head coach just jet for Texas like that. And, what really stuck out to me, Mac, I'm sure you can even appreciate this more as a writer, was the question that was asked to Schloss. I'm going to say Schloss because I had to say his name so many times last night that it's a very Schloss Nagel.
Yes.
That reporter was asking him, about the potential of leaving for the Texas job. And he said to this reporter that was a selfish question and that he would never leave. And
he never said he would never leave.
Not never leave. He said that this is the job that he sees himself to have for a long period of time, something like that. He basically insinuated that he wouldn't leave, though, is what I mean. But then to just less than 24 hours go to a rival that, see ya. I just wonder, you have to think like those talks were happening for a while. I just don't think that discussion materialized in 48 hours. Do you?
Well, you got to remember some of the particular parties at play here. I knew because they were at TCU and they were down the street. So I knew Jim Schlossnagle for a long
Right.
time. I've known him for a long time. I've known Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas, for a long time. And from what I gather in talking to people, just people who kind of know, um, this was not months in the works.
Okay.
And in fact, I think there's some respect to the coach that maybe the other school has their eye on, to respect their season and to let them play it out. I think the contributing factor here was that Texas fired its baseball coach, David Pierce, who had a good season.
Yeah.
They announced it because he had already told his players, and it was going to get out. So rather than wait until A&M's season was done, they announced it that morning. Now, it's still a curious look. My gut feeling is that this wasn't done, but I think people kind of had an idea that this was going to be at least on the table. And the thing about it, that I don't know if it would have changed had A&M won. I mean, can you imagine had A&M won and he still left?
No, I think that would have been a bigger story, don't you?
So do I. Oh, absolutely. Now you can, if he left, because what this is basically, well, the closest thing obviously we've seen to it is when Roy Williams left Kansas, like a week after barely losing in the national championship game in men's basketball against Syracuse, and then going to North Carolina. But that one made sense because he had a relationship at North Carolina. He's from North Carolina. Dean Smith asked him personally multiple times to do it. North Carolina was down. That made sense.
Right.
This one, Jim had no prior relationship with the University of Texas. Now, I knew that was a job he had wanted for a while. And I think if you're an Aggie, it's just a slap in the face, and it's a reminder that, yeah, you're great. You've spent all kinds of money. You've got great facilities. You've got great fan support, and you're not UT.
Right.
So my thought when I asked you that question, it wasn't just about baseball. It's about any of it.
Right.
Is because Texas has the full power of that name and all that money. Can A&M really compete with them now as fellow conference members? I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think they'll win occasionally and they'll have their good runs, but the name is the name, and the name is Texas.
Yeah, and I just think especially it'll be interesting to see, Mac, like if any of these Texas A&M players, if Schloss is able to bring them over to Texas, and just how
I think you will.
And so I think short term it's absolutely no, but I think you never know in the future. You know what I mean? Texas A&M is a school that also has a ton of money too that they can throw at coaches. So
Yep.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think at some point that they will be able to compete with Texas, right? But now,
I think they're going to compete. I mean, I think it's just more of they'll compete with them. If you're spending money and you've got a big alumni base and all that, you're going to be fine. But the question is, can they be the best in the state? And there was a window there. I was feeling it. I'm not feeling it anymore.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with that too. And like you said, it just became not only a huge story in the state, but it was a national talker too.
Oh, yeah,
So that
really
was kind of the perfect timing for that.
Right. We had nothing else going on.
Nothing else going on. But it also made me think too, like when coaches have left for other jobs or maybe have started to, like, the whole story with Dan Hurley, that's staying at UConn. He said that he had told his players that he was going to meet with the Lakers. Like, I just wonder, clearly Schlossnagle didn't inform any of his players that this was happening, which I don't think is the right move. I guess you say, well, how does he handle it better? Do you tell them beforehand? I mean, I don't necessarily know the best way to go about it, but I don't think this was necessarily the right route. Then I think about Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma for USC and how that went down and how bitter people were about that.
Because I think that people were mad at Lincoln because that was done months in advance.
Right.
Like he knew he was gone. And with this one, I mean, there's no good way to do it. And from what I understand, the team got back to College Station. They're met with a hero's welcome by all these fans there who are, loyal, and they love the run. And it was so much fun. The team gets to the locker, the clubhouse, the locker room, and they're gone just like that. There is no time. And from what I understand, he had not, when they got back to College Station, they went straight to College Station. And then when he went home, is when he had the conversation about the Texas job. So there was never, look, there's never a good time to do it. It's all awkward. It looks bad. And the other thing too is people will remember, but they'll forget too.
Right. They'll move on to something else.
Yeah, we'll complain about something else, which brings us to our next topic, which is the Texas Rangers, a team that is the defending World Series champion, but has gone completely off the radar because of the success of the Dallas Stars this spring and certainly the Dallas Mavericks. For people who do not know, the Rangers are 37-43. They are 7.5 games behind first place Seattle in the American League West. They are 6 games behind a wild card spot. I wrote this back, I think, right before the start of the regular season. In my mind, the Rangers could have gone 0-162, and it wouldn't have mattered. Fans would have been okay. Well, here we are. We're almost at July, and the team has struggled all season long for a variety of reasons. Is it okay if this team doesn't make the playoffs? Like, did they get a total pass because they won the World Series for the first time ever last year?
So, like, I don't know that I like the word, like, is it okay for them not to miss the playoffs? But will I give them a pass? That word? Yeah, I will if these this team has endured so many injuries throughout the course of a season. And I just think it's not an excuse, but hey, if your guys aren't healthy for the duration of this season, it's understandable to think. And I think with this Rangers fan base, they're still talking about last year, Matt.
Right.
Like, they're still talking about the World Series. Like, we have coworkers at Fox 4 that are coming in still wearing their Texas Rangers World Series hats. So I still think they're living off of that. And not to say that fans obviously won't be disappointed, because when you look at this roster and just how elite they were offensively, and then the pitching, all these injuries, like, of course you're going to be a little upset if you're a diehard Rangers fan, right? But with all the injuries, it's hard not to give them a pass. But if they can get it together, I think I just read something with Josh Young. He's expected to swing in a few days. So you get some of these guys. But going into the season, Mac, you had Scherzer, DeGrom, and Molly. They were all out at the start of the season. You know what I mean? Like, you still don't have a healthy pitching rotation too. Then I wrote some of these down. Then you have all these guys have been injured at some point or another, or still injured. Nate Eovaldi, Gray, Spores, Bradford, Young, Bosco, Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, like all of these guys.
Well, and Corey Seager too has been.
And Corey Seager.
Yeah.
And Corey Seager and Marcus Semien too, the two guys that you paid $500 million to bring onto the team. They haven't been hitting like they did last year too. So, I'm kind of the mindset I still think if they get healthy at the right time, though, they can sneak into the playoffs. But if they don't, I don't think it will be this catastrophic story if they don't get it.
Of all the developments for the Rangers this season, and they had some big roster moves yesterday. They sent down Ezekiel Duran, which really kind of surprised me. Nate Lowe has really struggled this season. But of all the developments, which are the ones that to you are the biggest red flags for the future of the team?
I don't know. I still go back to Mac, just when we talk about the pitching, like in terms of Max Scherzer too, like we had you on the show the other day. I just, I guess for me right now, when I look at the hitting of this team, it's a little bit concerning too. Just the fact that they seem to not be performing like late in games. Like, the offenses seem to come up empty-handed late in games. Like right now they're batting .237, 78 home runs. They're averaging 4.22 per game. Kind of when we had you on just talking about Max Scherzer, and the fact is he going to be able to sustain? Will he be able to be healthy, when he comes back? Like, it's still kind of a question, right? Because of his age and things like that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now.
The one that concerns me the most is Josh Young. I mean, he's such a good player. And if you go back and watch that World Series run, it wasn't just his bat. He's as good as defensive third baseman as you could find. And if he has not been able to stay healthy, and you can't fault a guy. It's not like he's mailing it in. It's not like he's ducking it. He really wants to play. But when a guy that young keeps getting injured, you do have concerns.
Right.
And some of them, sometimes you say, well, gee whiz, that's a fluke thing. That's a freak thing. And that happens. So maybe he does come back and he's okay. But, so far in what has been a very good but young career, he's been hurt a lot. And to me, the Scherzer one, he's 40. He's been hurt a lot. Like I told you the other day, you don't question any of it, but he's 40. It's not his fault. I think the fault is you are counting on these guys.
Yeah.
And when you start counting on hurt guys to be healthy, you're taking a big risk. All right, we've got more to talk about. Hopefully our technical issues are behind us, and we can take break now and hear from our great friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, it worked. Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on Cowboys Overtime. I'm Mac Engel. That's Clarence Hill. Kidding. That's a good one. That is Miss Sam Gannon of KDFW, Fox 4 fame, and in Dallas. I don't know if you knew this or not. The NBA draft, the first round was last night.
Yeah.
And in the first round, half of the country of France was drafted.
I'm literally like, France is taking over.
Yes.
And we suck. No.
We suck. We do. We can't play basketball anymore. The entire league is going to be French here in the next 10 years. The Mavericks have a pick. Now, to acquire all these players over the last several years, they have traded away approximately 734 draft picks between now and the year 3035. But they do have one pick. They have the 58th pick today. They split the draft into 2 days now, just for television purposes. They have the 58th pick, and there is only one player out there who will be of note they might select.
Yeah.
He has a famous name. He's not really good, but he's really famous, and he might be good. This is the project, but it is interesting, and that is Bronny James, the son of LeBron James. And it has been a point of speculation for years that when this guy came out, he will eventually pair with his dad, who is clearly near the end of an incredible career.
Right.
Let's just play pretend for a minute, Sam. Bronny James is on the board and he's available. The Mavs had the 58th pick. Typically, the 58th pick is nothing. I remember one time the Mavericks drafted a giant Indian guy named Satnam Singh, who eventually went into professional wrestling. I can't make that up. So usually this is the flyer of flyers. Now, one time a late second round pick was a guy named Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
Big fat guy from Eastern Europe who turned out to be a pretty
kind of
decent
good.
player.
Yeah.
Decent, has some skills. If whomever they pick is a project, do you draft Bronny James?
So playing pretend, I think the only way you draft Bronny James is if in the back of your pocket, you know that LeBron wants to come to Dallas too and play with Luka and Kyrie, and somehow you try to make that work with the trade package. But no, I don't. I don't think the Mavericks want any part of Bronny James. I'm not saying that he can't turn into be a really good role player, like coming off the bench. But the consensus to me after reading and hearing about him is that he's not ready. Like he probably needs another year of college, right? And I think for the Mavericks, looking beyond the draft, like this team has a window right now where they're trying to win now with Luka and Kyrie. They're close. I do believe that the Mavs are close. I don't know that I'd take Bronny James on. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, who are the Mavs? I don't know who the Mavs are going to pick. Every time I try to predict something, it never goes that way. But for me, I don't think Bronny is someone that I would take on right now. I just don't. I think,
Time out. Let me ask you this. If you draft him and there's this sort of, you have a conversation, Nico Harrison knows Rich Paul very well. And I don't know if you were at the Mavericks season-ending press conference when Nico, the Mavs GM, was asked about it.
Yes,
and
I heard it.
Okay, so he said, I can't say anything about a player who isn't ours. And he said, Rich Paul, whom he's known forever, is going to say what he's going to say. And what's been out there is that Nico is basically an uncle, not my words, to Bronny James. So if you bring him, that means you might get LeBron at a deeply discounted price.
Right.
You went to every Mavericks Celtics game in the finals, which weren't terribly, none of them were, it was a blowout.
Yeah.
Do you think if you put, because you're not drafting Bronny, you're basically
Right.
bringing in LeBron.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think that makes this an NBA Finals winner? Bringing in LeBron James and pairing him with Doncic and pairing him with Kyrie?
I think he could be a consistent third scorer. I do.
Do you think he could, like, you think his ego would allow him to do that?
I think it would have to, right? I think he would kind of have to do what Kyrie has done to an extent. Like when he came to Dallas, he knows that the Mavs are Luka's team right now. You know, and I know that Kyrie is still, he has a lot of years left. I know that LeBron is towards the end of his career, but he would have to change some things up to make it work because he's played with Kyrie before. He's obviously won a title with Kyrie. He loves Luka. Yeah. He's talked about Luka probably more than any other player on an opposing team in terms of who he admires in terms of his game. You know that Luka loves LeBron. I think if they wanted to make it work, they could. I think that if you're trying to win now, I think LeBron James still has plenty left in the tank. I do. The way he takes care of his body, I don't know. What do you think?
You know, the thing that interested me about Bronny James was I had talked to a college coach who had scouted him as a high school senior and junior. And he said he's a really good player. He's not a Power 5 player.
Yeah.
He wasn't a guy who should have gone to the Big East. He said he was a San Diego State level talent. Now, San Diego State got to the championship game. So it's not like San Diego State's a bunch of bombs. San Diego State's a really good program, but it's not USC. It wasn't an Oregon. It wasn't Kansas or anything like that. That he should have gone to that level program and he could develop into a really good player. But he's Bronny James, and he was going to go anywhere he wanted because of his name and the marketing that it was going to bring to it. If you watch him back at USC, he averaged like less than 5 points a game. Now, obviously, he had a really serious health condition leading into that season,
which was scary.
It was terrifying, especially as I imagine as a parent, you were scared to death. But when I saw him, you saw a freshman who, he was a freshman, and he's an impressive kid. You watch him in interviews, you're like, man, this guy's really got his stuff together. But he's going to be buried at the end of a bench, and he's going to be basically a vehicle for a team to bring in LeBron. And my concern with LeBron coming to the Mavericks, we're talking about one of the best players in the history of the game. Now, and the other guys are too. I just don't know how it works on the floor because Doncic and LeBron basically play the same position.
Right.
And I'm thinking just about, you've got one guy who's used to having the ball in his hands all the time. Now you've got another guy who's used to having the ball in his hands all the time. And you got a third guy who has quite figured out he can play off the ball really, really well and be a great player.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they all work together. But if that's on the table, I don't know how you say no to that.
If that's on the table, if that is on the table, then you entertain it for sure. And it makes it, can you imagine like the media craze that it would cause if LeBron James ended up being in a Mavericks uniform coming? Can you imagine what that would look like here?
No. And because the Mavericks, for all the success that they've had, they've never bagged the big time free agent.
Yeah.
Right? The Rangers have. The Cowboys did back in the day when free agency was really a thing. The Stars did there for a little, but the Mavericks never did. Now, they got guys through trades, but never the free agent. Personally, I don't see LeBron leaving Los Angeles. I think he likes living there. I think that was the reason he went there, was to live in LA and to create his media brand, which he's done successfully. Okay, right. Last thing we'll talk about here. We talked about it the other day, and that is the Olympic qualifying games are coming up. And Luka Doncic, who often looked like he was playing with a piano stuffed in his shirt and on his back in the playoffs, is going to play for his native Slovenia in an effort to get them into the Olympics, and then obviously in the Olympics if they make it. Is this a good idea?
I don't personally think it is. Now,
I agree with you.
Let me say this. So I put this little clip just talking about it out on TikTok, and I had some Europeans coming after me.
Right.
Saying, what I said, of course, you Americans would think this. And I said, hold up. I'm not saying I don't respect Luka for his loyalty for his country of Slovenia. I respect the heck out of him for it. You know, I think Luka, for everything that he is, he's a really humble superstar. And he's a guy who doesn't forget his roots. And you could argue that playing for his home country is right now maybe just as important for him as playing in the NBA. But my stance is solely on a health perspective when it comes to Luka. The season essentially lasted 8 months. You know, they played until essentially mid-June. This guy was playing throughout the playoffs with 3 different injuries. Yes, he was injured. My favorite thing was covering him during the Thunder series, how all the Thunder fans were like, he's faking an injury. No, he's not. He had a right knee sprain, left ankle sprain, chest bruise, like all of these things. It is a wear and tear. Yeah. And when you're playing that long into the season, your body needs to recuperate. And for someone like him, who's the face of the franchise and who had to carry such an offensive load, I just think it would be in his best interest to give his body a break. I understand why he's playing. He's going to play great. I'm going to watch him. You know, I think it would be different if the Mavs were, let's say, bounced in the first or second round of the playoffs. I agree. That would be different. But the fact that they were in the finals and it went 5 games and then he's leaving for Slovenia literally 7 days later, it's a little bit different.
I agree with everything you said. I think there's one other part of this, and I was going to write about it, but I'll just ask you. One of the narratives that have come up about Luka is his conditioning, his weight, and all that other stuff. And it sometimes can get really loud. And, you know, when Reggie Miller says it, he said it a couple of years ago, no one says anything because it's Reggie, right? Reggie played. And when somebody like you or I or certain other members of the media make comments, which are just judgment calls based on a guy's conditioning or his weight, I wrestle with that. I asked Nico Harrison about it, if that's a priority for the Mavericks, that his conditioning or his weight or any of that needs to change and improve. And he gave a very nice standard. Yeah, of course we wanted to be. He wants to be, all that stuff. So he didn't duck it, but it was a nice answer. So my question to you, as somebody who's worked in this for a while, who is a Division I athlete, should members of the media like me, do we have any place to sit there and comment on a professional athlete's weight conditioning?
It's a great question. Do we have any place to say it? I mean, I think we're going to talk about it, right?
That's true.
So whether or not we should, we're going to, because it's not just local media. It's become a national narrative.
That's why I asked you.
So listen, and I'm one to talk to because I've been out of the pool for years, Mac, and slowly trying to make my way back. It's hard, right? He's got so much God-gifted talent, and he's so young. So there's certain aspects, I think, from a health standpoint where he can get away with. But as he gets older and he puts more wear and tear on his body, the conditioning part of it, I do think is going to be more important. And I just think if he can lock in, I know I'm not really answering your question, should we? Well, I'm commenting on it anyway, but I think if he can lock in a little bit more on the conditioning aspect of his game, I think that will maybe alleviate some of these nagging little injuries that pop up throughout the season that he's been known to have, you know? And I do believe that for as great as Luka is, I still think there's tiers to his greatness. I mean, when you look at someone like LeBron James, who's literally spent like millions and millions on his body, I mean, just upkeeping it and just making sure that he's in the optimal physical shape to compete. I think that's something that Luka should look into a little bit more, you know, but maybe that's something that just hasn't been at the forefront of his mind. But I do think after this finals run, Mac, I do think that maybe is something that he's going to remember. Maybe every player needs to be motivated by some moment in their career. You know, I've never played in the NBA, so I can't say it, but that's just what I think. I think he needs to hone in on that a little bit more.
I agree. And in terms of the comments, I think sometimes if you're a fan, you can't win. If you're a member of the media commenting on damn near anything, sometimes you can't win. Well, what are you? You never played? You never did? Yeah, you're right. I didn't.
Right.
I sucked. I did this instead of playing because I stunk. I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
But I do think there's, especially as you get older, and I can appreciate some of the things that you said, which is, hey, look, man, this is only going to get harder. That's just not a pro athlete thing. That's a life thing. And I know for me, and it's something that you and I have talked about, and I talk about to anybody, which is your life is just easier if you're a little bit lighter, if you're in a little bit better shape, feel a little bit better about yourself. You're not putting too much pressure on your joints and your bones and your muscles. And that's another thing. I've whined about this now for the last couple of years. The modern day athlete is too damn big. They're too muscular and they're too heavy, because for an 82, that's why we're seeing all these guys go back to the 70s or 80s, before these guys started to put on massive amounts of muscle. They played 82 games. They played 162 games.
Yeah.
They played 14, 15, 16 games, whenever the maximum number of games in the NFL's regular season was. They played them all. They were big, but these guys are enormous, and they're better than ever. And one of the reasons they are better than ever is because they're so muscular and they're so fast. But your bodies and your joints and your bones, they can only do so much before they go boom.
Right.
And that's my concern with Luka when I watch him play. And Jason Kidd has talked about it. He falls down a lot, and the wood's going to win. The wood is going to win every time. Yeah. And so I do think this: if you're going to comment on this stuff as a member of the media, you're going to sit there and say, "Well, that guy's fat. You better look in the mirror," because you're setting yourself up for a comment.
And that's my thing. Luka isn't fat.
No,
he's
God,
6'7". He is not.
No,
he's just not a guy who's naturally cut.
Nope.
You know, like some of these other players.
Like LeBron. You're right.
You know what I mean? Like, but that drives me crazy when people call him fat. He's not fat.
No, my God, he's not fat.
Could he work on his conditioning? Sure. And I think he'll find that if he does that, it's going to alleviate some of that physical toll that a season takes. Is because he looked gassed at the end of Game 5.
He looked dead. He looked dead to start Game 5. To start
it was just clear, like, and his usage rate right now, Mac, I mean, it was very, and I don't see it going down anytime soon yet. You know what I'm saying?
No, so. And he's in a window now. He's entering the prime of his career. And I'm totally with you on it. There are tiers to how good this guy is. And he's already here, right? And he can be here. And I think criticizing him sometimes is a bit much, but I think anybody who says there's more in there, I think that's valid. All right, one more thing I want to ask you. You are a native Bostonian, but the one thing you have done really, really well since I've known you, and I imagine you did it in Oklahoma City, I've never heard the accent.
Thank you, Mac. I appreciate that.
So we're going to bring it out right now here on Window Nation. I want to hear a Bostonian accent from a woman who grew up there. About maybe give me a sentence about going to Dunkin' Donuts or going down to the Haba, anything like that. I need to hear it one time.
You know, it's funny because I really don't have like a natural, thick Boston accent. But if I was going to play it up, if like I was around my friends from home, I tend to talk really fast. So like, you know, after I get off of this, I'm going to like go take my car, get inside my car, drive down 75, go get a cup of coffee, go get Dunkin'. And I'll chill out. Maybe I'll call my mom, hang out in my room because it's a little hot outside. So do that kind of thing.
That was good. I didn't expect that. That was good. I didn't think you'd speed it up to hit the Haba and hang out in my room. It's a little hot outside. I don't want to do that. I can't really do it. That was good.
You know, it was funny. Like when I went back to Boston, it's funny when you know, because I haven't lived there full time since I left for college. So I was 18. It's whenever I'm around, I'm like, wow, those Boston accents are really thick. I never really realized it.
No, they are. And they really, when I haven't been there in a couple of years, but when the first time it was like some attendant, and he said, go get the car. And I didn't want to laugh. And I kind of did this because you just never hear it. And they're when you're not used to it, they are funny. Okay, I have kept you way too long.
No, I've had a blast. This was great.
Thank you very much.
Usually it's in the reverse, but I know. I loved being in this chair.
No, this was great. You're great at it. Hopefully I can bug you again down the road to get you filling for Clarence. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, Window Nation, for all of your local sports coverage needs, especially here in the hellish months. Be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. I will see you next week.